Hello everyone, a warm welcome to this session today. We at GMATWhiz always want to bring you amazing success stories of students who have actually nailed the GMAT and scored really high on the test. And today is one such a story. We have Jihan with us today who has scored a 720 on the GMAT. She is a French student, a non-native speaker, and she nailed the GMAT in the very first attempt with about 3.5, 4 months of effort with an amazing score of Verbal 42. So we have Jihan with us today over here. So I'm going to invite her to the session really soon. But this session is about you guys. I see there are some people who are watching it live, and there are more of you who will be watching it later as well. So if you have any questions, feel free to write it in the live chat. Feel free to share us on the comments. We'll be happy to take them up even in the live format or later on as well as time proceeds. So without any further ado, I would invite Jihan to this session as well very quickly. So Jihan, how does it feel to kind of get to the target score, nail the verbal section in the very first attempt and have an amazing verbal 42? Like how was the feeling basically when you saw the test results?
Actually, it was very good because I prepared for I think 3 months, and
Okay.
I didn't expect to get the score to be honest, the
Okay.
720. But when I got the sheet, the results sheet, I was surprised, but it was a good surprise. So I'm very happy with the score.
No, it's really, really good to know. And I was just going through the notes that your mentor Satyam shared with me. And I saw one thing which was written over there that even if your score suggests that you are actually doing well, sometimes you actually feel a little underconfident because you personally probably feel that you could have done better. So I
Yeah.
understand that why probably you felt that 720 was something that you were not expecting, but honestly, your mock scores and everything was in line. So that's something which definitely we are going to talk about more as we go deeper into the session. But one thing that you mentioned, Nihan, was that you prepared for 3 months. So let's start with your professional background as well. Like let's tell people about what do you do professionally, and at the time of doing the GMAT, were you working? How many hours were you devoting? Let's I think start with the professional background, and we can get to the study prep details a little later.
Yeah, sure. So I work as an industrial engineer. I work for a logistics company. And so preparing for GMAT while working full time is a bit of a challenge. And especially I started preparing in a period where I was traveling a lot for work. So it was very hard
Okay.
to kind of balance between preparation and work as well. So mainly I was working during the evenings, but not every evening because I sometimes I would be exhausted, and on the weekends. I
Okay.
think I kind of accelerated my preparation. So I started at the end of September, around the end of September. I worked through October, but I really kind of started accelerating after, by the end of the October, beginning of November. That's when I really started focusing on GMAT. Like every evening, I would have preparation. I would prepare for the for the exam, and
Okay.
yeah, on December it
That's
was
all.
full preparation for sure.
That's important. In fact, like generally what people do is they fizzle out. They start on a high note, they put in a lot more effort, and then their efforts go down. So what is important is to scale up the efforts. That's a very, very important thing to do, and you have done that. That's great. And Jihan, I think you are planning still for INSEAD, which is the best school in the entire European region, and you being in France, obviously it would be a dream school for you, probably since the day you have thought of GMAT. And the current score enables you to kind of get into NCR for sure.
Yeah, I actually was planning on retaking the GMAT because I was for me the 720 was good, but I was thinking that maybe if I prepare one more month, I'll maybe get to 750 at least 760. But then I had the call with an INSEAD, with someone from INSEAD, and he told me I think the 720 is good, and you just now have to focus on your application, on the essay,
Okay.
on the so kind of made me rethink about if I have to retake the GMAT. So I decided not to, and follow his advice and more focus on the application part.
Well, that's very important. In fact, you have to ensure that you're not over optimizing unnecessarily as well. So 720 is a very, very good score. And I know your profile a bit, so I'm telling you from that background as well. So that's a good thing. So let's start from the start. Like, when did you start your GMAT journey? Like, how did you start? Basically, what were the first things that you did? What were your learnings from it? Let's start from that.
Okay. So I started the GMAT by myself, preparing for the GMAT by myself. I bought the OG guide, and since I come
Mm-hmm.
from engineering background, I've done like 2 years of intense maths. I thought, yeah, how hard can it be to prepare for the quant part, because I've already done some maths in my previous life, and also um, the verbal didn't scare me that much. I was thinking, yeah, I don't have like a very bad level of English. I'm not native for sure, so I
Mm-hmm.
definitely was expecting to have challenges. But I thought, yeah, maybe I mean I would be able to score good in verbal. And I started, so I got the OG guide. I started preparing by myself by just solving the questions like one after the
Okay.
other, and I was
Okay.
solving accurately. I started with the quant questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I before I started, actually, I took a mock GMAT
Okay.
just to see, just to get the feeling of how it goes. What
Mm-hmm.
I should be looking out for, and I scored very bad. I think four something, 400 something, which is very bad. And
Okay. Okay.
I thought, yeah, definitely I have to start preparing. So I started preparing, and I spent a month preparing like this.
Mm-hmm.
And then I took another mock just to see if I was improving my level. And I don't remember the score, but I think I scored even worse than the first time. And
Okay.
so
Worse than 400 something
yeah,
basically. So okay,
exactly. So
wow.
I was like, no, this is definitely not working for me. I'm doing something wrong. I just have to change my approach. Obviously, it's not about preparing like this. It's about preparing more efficiently. So I got to I think a group on social media, and I found people preparing together, and they were talking about
Mm-hmm.
GMATWhiz and how it helped them prepare and score. So I got to the GMATWhiz platform. I There was like 2 lessons offered for free. I tried them,
Mm-hmm.
and I liked how it
Okay.
liked the method, and I realized at that time, oh, it's about solving quickly, not solving it's about
Mm-hmm.
solving accurately for sure, but I have to be efficient, and I have to solve in less than 2 minutes an average per question. And to do that,
True.
you have to know the tricks. It's not about, you can do the classical method where you'd solve just, using how I've learned to do it in school, but you have some tricks, some tips that helps you solve the question a lot faster, and it makes you, win some time when you have 30 questions to solve.
Yes, in a
Uh,
competitive test, it matters a lot. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I decided to subscribe to the plan, and I did the whole 6-month plan. I subscribed to that plan, and I followed the structure literally like it was suggested to me. I followed the
Mm-hmm.
plan as it was suggested. I was really focusing on every lesson, taking notes of the key tricks and tips that I would help me to solve questions. I was solving also the questions on the per lesson. So if the lesson was
Okay.
about I don't know, uh, geometry, like part of geometry, I would learn that lesson and go directly and try to apply those what I've learned in the exercises in the OG guide.
Okay.
And that helped me really
Okay.
improve.
Okay. So that's very interesting to know. So I didn't know before this call that your mock score was like 400 something. So with three and a half months of effective preparation, you were able to improve your score by approximately 300 points. That's which is an amazing achievement. And for those of you who are watching this, like very important learning that you have to take from Jihan. Like she's worked on her, like she is someone who has improved from 400 something to 720 in 3 months. That fast an improvement was possible in her case, but her score decreased actually in 1 month of prep when she was only focusing on practicing questions. So please understand, and again, OG is an amazing book, no doubt about the quality of questions which are there in the OG. But it is also important that you understand the right method, as Jihan was talking about. You need to understand the tricks, you need to understand the tips. And that's when you are able to see the improvement of the kind of improvement that we're talking about. And honestly, Jihan, from now on, probably if I get any student who talks about score improvement for the next 2 3 months at least, I'm gonna take your example all the time. But that kind of an improvement is an amazing improvement. It's gonna be very very inspiring for anyone else to kind of get to that level. So that structure is one thing which is very important for you to kind of have in your preparation. So that's what Jihan was telling us about. So tell me one more thing, Jihan. So you talked about the study plan which was given to you by GMATWhiz. You followed that study plan. Now, one element of it is like the tips and tricks that you see. But anything else that you felt probably like the structure in terms of starting with the basics, then going to intermediate level, or anything else that you felt is something which is very important and that was missing from your prep earlier, like when you're preparing just using the old official guide?
So before starting with the preparation plan with GMAT, that's something I was.
Yeah, so what I'm asking is that after using GMATWhiz, did you see anything different basically compared to the official guide that you were using earlier?
I actually, yeah, because when I was preparing for the question, when I was preparing by myself with just doing answering the question one after the other, I didn't do it by theme. Every lesson is about
Okay.
a subject, and and there are questions
Hmm.
about each. I was solving the questions based on what I've learned and what I still was remembering, and I would go
Okay.
for each question. I would go to us, check the lesson. So it wasn't organized. Whereas when you know that
Hmm.
okay, there is this question, and this is something I really appreciated in GMAT because in the GMAT they categorized the questions per lesson. So if you learn the lesson, you have the questions related to that lesson. Whereas if you go
Hmm.
through the OG guide, you don't have that. So you can have a lesson on a question on probabilities, and then you have geometry right after, and then and then also by difficulty. So in GMAT I think at a certain time with Satyam, who was my tutor at the time, we realized that I was doing good with easy questions, so I had to stop with easy questions. So I went straight
Hmm.
to medium and difficult questions, and this is something also that's very important because I would have continued on solving easy questions
Hmm. Hmm.
and losing time over those kind of questions when I had to put a lot of when I didn't have much time, so I had really to be more efficient with my preparation, and that helped me as well.
No, that's important. That very important tip. So basically, like two things that you talked about. I'm just trying to summarize basically for everyone. One is that when you're doing lessons, those should be in a sync. It should not be that you're jumping from one thing to another, which is completely unrelated. You should always be doing things which are more in sync. For example, let's say if you are doing, let's say, even odd numbers, the right next to that, the next topic which makes sense to do is prime numbers because those topics are related, and prime numbers is a slightly more advanced thing compared to even odd. You should not be doing primes first and doing even odd later. So that is something which is a structure which is very important which Jihan followed. And again, in GMATWhiz, we have this entire study plan that you can use and get a personalized action plan. The second thing which she talked about was that Satyam, her mentor, was able to guide her where to focus her attention. So you should not be that, okay, you're spending too much time on questions that you're already good at. So what's the point of wasting time on easy questions? And it's not the same for everyone. You have to understand that everyone is different. Like I was just speaking to another student, Jihan, just a few days back. And for her, what was happening was that she was not able to do well in the topics that she was doing. So I asked her to stop and I told her to just focus on easy and medium questions for now, not focusing at all on the hard questions. I gave her a simple goal that you don't move forward unless you get 100% accuracy in easy and medium questions. And just today, she messaged me that Piyush, I was feeling so low till like 3 days before because I was not seeing much improvement in myself. But now I'm actually enjoying the process that you're actually sharing with me, and I'm actually learning in the best possible way. So it's very, very important that you get that personalized advice, what works for you, what is required at your particular stage. So that's really great, Jihan. Thank you for those inputs. So now let's move to the learning part. So when you are learning on the platform, like in like not just about the GMAT this platform, when you are learning for GMAT, like what are the areas where you face the maximum number of challenges or you face difficulties? What was one thing that actually like was most complex for you to nail?
Okay, so this was unexpected actually, because I was thinking, oh, maybe quant would be difficult, not verbal.
Mhm.
So I kind of spent a lot of time at the beginning at quant, and
Okay.
then when I started learning about verbal, that's when it hit me. It's not that easy because I was thinking, oh, it's just a text. You just have to understand it, answer questions. It's not that. It's not about that at all. You have to understand. Sometimes the meanings are different, and you have to know how the question is asked. Every question is different, and the answer should be according to the question, not according to how you understand it. It's very tricky. And and that's when I started learning about the lessons as well for verbal. And for me, the one main challenge was sentence correction. I think I struggled a lot with
Okay.
sentence correction.
It's the same
And
for all native, non-native speakers. Just let me tell you, sentence correction is the biggest challenge.
I don't know why, but it's definitely, you can think, yeah, it's just a couple of grammar rules you have just to, but it's really difficult. And I think for idioms and comparisons, those were the main topics that I was struggling the most with. And every time I would score low
Okay.
on verbal, I'd see the pattern, and it's always something related to comparison, something related to idioms. I mean, it
Okay.
was about that. So I started focusing on questions about comparison and idioms,
Okay.
and doing more of those questions, but only the medium and difficult questions, because I was doing okay with the easy questions. And so yeah, and I think it hit me that I might actually fail the GMAT because of the verbal, which I've never expected. I was thinking that if I fail the GMAT, I
Yes.
would fail it for quant, but verbal, I think 1 month before, 1 month and a half before the test, I realized that I definitely have a lot of struggles with verbal, and that's when I started really focusing on verbal. And the
So what worked for you in sentence correction? Like you mentioned, the sentence correction was an area which was tricky for you. So what is that thing that actually helped you improve your sentence correction? Because when you score a verbal 42, you have at least scored a 90 plus percentile, like mostly on an average, your percentile is 90 plus. So you would have definitely scored a minimum of 89 percentile, 88, 89 percentile in any one of the topics for sure. So definitely have mastered all three areas. So what did work for you for in sentence correction?
so this collection is just I was answering a lot of questions, so I can understand the logic behind every question. And at a certain time, when you solve a lot of questions of GMAT, you kind of get the idea of how the question is designed. And sometimes they kind of, you have a pattern, and they repeat the lessons the tricks that you should be aware of, especially the tricks that you should be aware of, and the traps. You kind of learn them by solving a lot of questions. So I did that. I kind of solved all the questions in the OG guide for the sentence
Okay.
correction. And then
Mhm.
my mentor with GMATWhiz, he gave me another list, and he told me, okay, so
Okay.
if you have problems with this comparison and with idioms, I suggest you go through these type of questions in the GMAT club, I think, where I had those questions. So
Mhm.
I started solving those as well, and I think I just improved by doing that. And also,
Okay.
yeah, so I think I improved, but I was really focusing a lot on verbal, not only sentence correction. Sometimes I would get also some um, reading comprehension, where I had like some struggles also with some type of questions. So just focus really on the questions where I was failing the most,
Okay.
and that's how I improved. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. So basically, what you need to do is again ensure that you have identified the areas where you're going wrong. And one good thing about GMAT is that it happens around the year. So you can take it as many times. You can take it as many times, but also means that GMAT has to create a lot of questions, a lot of new questions as well, which basically means that they have to stick to a certain style of testing. They have to stick to a certain pattern of testing. So if you are able to do significant number of questions and you identify the pattern, you identify the logic being tested, you start looking for those logics when you are reading the question. So that's what Jihan wanted to like tell us about the pattern thing. So it is important that if you're struggling in a particular topic, Just make sure that you identify that, do more questions on that, so that you identify the patterns better. And what about the meaning? Like, how important? Like again, Jihan, this is a common question which I get asked a lot about from students. So, how important is the meaning-based approach to kind of solve sentence correction questions? Like, what is your feeling on that?
Sorry, about the meaning, I didn't get the questions.
Meaning-based approach. So, like, how important is the meaning-based approach that people like to talk about in sentence correction? Like, when you read the sentence, how important is it for you to understand the meaning of the sentence? Like, is it just the grammar that matters, or is it also meaning which is important?
No, definitely the meaning as well is very important, and I think also the level of English that is tested in GMAT can be very challenging. It can be very high for non-native. For me, I was not. I don't speak English on on a regular basis, so definitely I was sometimes struggling with meaning. But again, as I said, if you prepare, if you when you have a lot of questions done, you kind of uh, even the the because it's sometimes about geology, sometimes it's about economics, sometimes you kind of get accustomed to those terms, and you will find them they get repeated in the questions. So if you solve a lot of questions, the chances that you might find a word that you've already encountered are pretty high. So
Great. So let's talk about the last leg of your prep. So we talked about the initial leg, like where you focused on the structure given by GMATWhiz, you followed the curriculum, you solved questions along with it, and then you also made sure that you practice questions on your weak areas after that. Now, what about the last 15-20 days of your preparation? Just before the GMAT, what did you do in those days?
yeah, so I think I started doing the mocks just 15 days before the actual
Okay.
date, because I was a
Okay.
bit behind on my schedule. I was aiming for to finish all the lessons like 1 month before, so I can have enough time to prepare with to do a lot of mocks. But I was a bit behind. Like I said, I kind of underestimated some. This is a mistake that I've done. I kind of underestimated the preparation that it takes for the verbal part. So once I got in, I discovered, yeah, I should definitely put much more time into it. And so I kind of was a bit late on with my schedule. But I started 15 days before, so I did the GMAT test on the December 30th,
Okay.
and started the mocks on December 15th, like
Okay.
15 days before.
Just 15 days.
And the first one, I think I scored not good in verbal. I did like a
Yeah, you
34
scored a
read.
verbal 34. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So it shows how I was struggling with verbal. So I decided, okay, I would focus more on verbal, but still answer questions with quant, because with GMAT it's all about consistency. You have to prepare and be consistent with preparation, because if you stop, like sometimes what people do, they start really preparing for a whole month, then they kind of abandon the preparation for 15 days and they go back. During the 15 days, you would lose a lot of the progress you made on the preparation of the first month, because you might forget about what you've learned, the tricks, the tips, and everything. You might forget about that. So you kind of have to do a double effort to remember what you've already learned during the first month, and then we can continue. So it's kind of wasted in energy, I find. So for me, I was making sure, okay, I have to prepare for verbal, but also stay focused on quant, because I don't want to lose that
Go on.
part as well.
Okay.
I think first three mocks on GMATWhiz, and two mocks in the on the the two mocks that are available on the MBA.com. And so I kind of saw the progress. I was improving from the first one. Actually, was not good. The first mock I took, because I was panicking, because this is the first time I took a test with a timer. So I was watching out. Okay, I have to finish the question. I have to solve it accurately, but I was also paying attention to the time, and I wasn't really focused on. And you don't, because you don't want to spend more than 2 minutes on average on a question, and you don't get in your mind, the mind is not used to know, is it already 2 minutes past, did the 2 minutes pass or not. um, so when you have the first mock, kind of know if you were too slow or too fast, and then your mind kind of adjusts after that. So the second mock, I was thinking, okay, maybe I still have time. It's not, I'm not that slow, so I still have time. And yeah, that's definitely helped me in reducing my panic, because I was panicking with the time. I was focusing a lot on that.
No, Satyam was telling me that like your sentence correction performance was actually improved by the time you took the first mock. In fact, like your scores on the GMAT platform were pretty good, but that's just that mock test. The score had basically shown that you were just panicked in that test. It was not like you were not prepared for it. So does happen. That definitely happens with a lot of students. In time management is something which is of an issue initially.
Yeah. So I think I scored the last mock I took on GMATWhiz. I scored 710. Um, and then I went straight to the test I did on in this test center, and I scored 720. But again, for me, and this is what I was telling Satyam at the time. I told him, oh, I think for me the test I'm gonna take on December is a mock test for me. Even if it's in a test center, I'm gonna consider it as a mock test. I don't want to put a lot of pressure on myself. I think
That's
if
good.
I don't score that well, I would have to retake it and maybe have a second attempt. And he told me, no, just try and score and try to do your best, because I think you might score well in your first attempt. So just really go with the mindset that you might score well in your first attempt. Give it all your best, and so just don't consider it as a mock. And I did, and yeah, I was happy with the result. So it's good.
That's really good. In fact, that's important to do as well. Like obviously, you have to strike the right balance between being too serious and not being serious at all. So that's always that right balance is needed. People who get too serious, they also get anxious. So it's important that you at least kept your calm as well. That okay, I'm not gonna take it too serious in my mind. That okay, it ends up becoming a burden on me, and that actually helped you because your mock scores were always increasing. Like every mock that you took with that mock you scored improved. And just to give you an idea about Jihan's last mock score, she scored a 710 on the last mock before she took the actual GMAT. And this was a GMATWhiz mock. And generally, GMATWhiz mocks are more difficult than the actual test. So your scores are 0 to 20 points more than what you actually get on GMATWhiz mock. So it was pretty much in line with what she scored on the actual test. So it is something which helps you always. Like if you put a lot of pressure on your mind with respect to, okay, I have to get it done. I have to get it done in like 15 days. Just 10 days are remaining, 9 days are remaining. If you're counting it down that way, it will actually be counterproductive. So that's something which is really, really great. So thank you so much like for this. Sorry, you're saying something, I guess. Yeah.
No, but I think also it's very important for if people are really planning on taking the GMAT, I think they should give themselves a second, some time to have a second attempt, a second try. And this is very important, because if you only take, okay, this is my only chance of, because if you have to apply like 1 month after you have the deadline, like in 1 month or so, and you know that you have to take that GMAT, otherwise you wouldn't be able to, you would miss the deadline, then definitely there are a lot on stake, so a lot of pressure, and that pressure alone, even if you're prepared very well for the exam, the pressure alone would really impact your score. Whereas when you have a lot of time and you say, okay, so what's the worst that can happen? Yeah, if I don't get a good score now, okay, I can really take in 1 month, I can retake the exam. So just that idea would relieve a bit of the pressure on your mind, and definitely will help you with the stress, and with how you go through the test.
No, that's very, very important. In fact, just before our call, like I think an hour before our call, I was speaking to a student who has taken 6 attempts on GMAT already. And she's really struggling with the score. She's not crossed the 620 ever. And she was telling me, Piyush, you know what? I want to get done with the GMAT in 1 month. And my first recommendation rather, like I gave her two recommendations. My first recommendation for her was, you should not think about when you have to take the GMAT till the time you're done with the GMAT. You should not think about it. You should not tell it to yourself because for the same reason as you mentioned, that it puts unnecessary pressure on you. It doesn't allow you to be calm, and that's what you need to actually do well on the GMAT. If you're not calm, You'll not be able to read information, you'll not be able to understand information, you'll not be able to process information. So all those things go wrong, basically. So really, really nice inputs, Jan. And thank you so much for taking our time today and talking to students, sharing your experiences and all. So any closing note, any closing comments you would like to add, give to the users over here? Yeah.
Okay, so I just have like a small advice for all those people that think that GMAT is not feasible, or if you think I came from very far. I mean, I scored at the beginning 400. I thought this is definitely not gonna work for me, and I had my moments of doubt as well at the beginning. I was thinking, oh, I'm not gonna progress. I don't think I can ever. I would see people scoring 700 something. I would say, oh my God, they're so lucky. They must be, very smart and everything. And but if you take the right structure, the right plan, and you really focus, and consistency, I really cannot stress this enough. Consistency with preparation. You have to prepare with the, even if you do like 2 hours per day, it's better or than having like 10 hours per day at once and then forget about preparation for a while. And I think it's with GMAT, with the right preparation, it's everyone can score like even 740 or 60. It just takes some, some
No,
time management.
definitely, definitely. And then your story is very, very inspiring for all those people. Trust me, like I told you now, I'm gonna talk about your example to all the people who tell me like, is it even possible to get to that score? And that's the story of belief. That's what you need to do. You had a hectic work schedule. You were traveling across like across multiple geographies because of your work. Even then, you ensured that you stick to a particular schedule. And when you stick to a particular schedule, learn systematically, you can actually get to your target score. So definitely very, very important tips, Jihan, and keep doing that. Like believe in yourself is something which is the most important skill I think is required in the today's world. And in case you guys are feeling like demotivated or you want help for GMAT, feel free to reach out to GMAT. This team, I've just shared the link in the chat. We are happy to help you in getting to your target score. And thank you so much, Jihan, for taking our time today. I'm sure users would have got a lot to learn from you. And if there are any other questions which I get from the users later on in the comments, I'll try to see if you have some time. We will pass it on to you maybe later on. Okay.
Okay,
So
no
thank you
problem.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.